outside until the HVAC system went down yesterday, so we're working on it. But we got some fans in the background. If you need me to speak louder or turn up the volume, please do let me know. Let me start by saying my name is Richard Carbaum. I was elected 6 weeks ago chair of the Minnesota DFL party. Very excited to take on this leadership role in our state and on behalf of a party that has raised me in Minnesota. Obviously, Ken Martin was our chair for 14 years. Many of you knew Ken well. And he is now serving as chair of the Democratic National Committee and doing a fantastic job. He's giving our party, I think, a significant amount of direction and opportunity to accomplish great things in this second term of a Trump presidency. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I want to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing at the DFL, but mostly today is about listening to you and connecting with you. This listening tour is about us as a team from the DFL getting out into the community and listening to folks, understanding and learning your perspective on what the party should focus on. So ultimately, with you, we can lead Minnesota to great victory in November of 2026. So we listen, we learn, and then we lead together. That's the whole point of this listening tour. Before we start, I want to acknowledge a few people. So first off, Marge Hoffa, our first vice chair of the Minnesota DFL, is here with us today. And then we have some wonderful state party staff here. Darwin here is our communications director. He's here with us. Vlad behind you is one of our research team members. Vlad gets to know a lot about what Republicans say in secret so we can expose that publicly. Back here we have Marissa on our team. So Marissa, thanks for being here. Hannah is here, maybe around the corner. Hannah, and then, Matt. Where are you at, Matt? Is he by the door as well? Matt. Matt is our newest member of our team. When I got elected, I talked about hiring organizers, and Matt is our organizing director. So he is in charge of hiring 8 new organizers by the end of this month, which I'm super excited about. Lastly, I don't know if Ben is in the room, but Ben's a teacher here at Southwest State, and he helped organize the event, and then Anita Gall, who's here as well, who helped us organize the event. So thank you so much for all your help. So a little bit about me. In 2002, I was a college student at St. Vincent St. John's up in Stearns County, and I got inspired by a guy named Paul Wellstone who was running for the U.S. Senate. And he would implore us, he would tell college students, he'd tell all of us all the time, that politics is about the improvement of people's lives. But he'd say it differently. He'd go, politics is about the improvement of people's lives. And I remember that, and I've taken that with me every step of my career since being at St. Vincent St. John's, thinking about the fact that as a Minnesotan, as an American citizen, it's my duty to wake up and do something to improve the lives of those around me. And that's why I'm a Democrat. That's why I'm a member of our DFL party, and that's why I'm so honored and thrilled to be able to serve in this capacity with all of you, leaders in our community, who want to do the same thing. You believe that politics is about making sure that the lives of those who live around us are improved just a little bit each and every day. That's the definition, from my perspective, of our party. So at the DFL, we've been working hard trying to understand the perspective of Democrats throughout the state. Somebody asked me, is this the end of the tour? I would say we're about the midpoint of the listening tour. This thing's going to go probably throughout most of the summer. We're here in Marshall tonight. We'll be in Eagan tomorrow. We're up in Fergus Falls on Tuesday, and we're in Rochester, I think, on Wednesday. So we're crisscrossing the state quite literally, and we're going to add to that. We're going to add probably something next weekend, and we're going to continue to add more stops on this listening tour into the future. It's important to us to hear from you and get to know folks here, so I want to start by just asking a couple of icebreaker questions. Who here is a teacher? All right, quite a few teachers. Who here is a farmer, lives on a farm? Who here is a veteran? Thank you for your service. Who here is a first responder, a firefighter, police officer, and first responders? All right, who here comes from a divided political family? I'll raise my hand. Yeah. This moment we're in is very, very interesting in terms of how we as a community are processing decisions that come out of Washington each and every day. There's an endless amount of chaos and confusion. And I think that causes a great deal of anxiety, and as leaders in our community, we have to think about what our role is in meeting that challenge each and every day. So this is a listening tour, and I have a few questions, and then we're actually going to do an action tonight as well. But I'm going to start with the first question, which is pretty serious, but one that I hope you can share your perspectives. I will say we have Mike, folks, Darwin, and Marissa. So Darwin and Marissa are going to be having the microphones. Raise your hand, and when you answer the question, just give us your first name and your answer. And I do want to say that Vlad here on our team is going to take notes. We take notes at each and every stop so that we can, reflect on and understand the feedback we've gotten. So the first question is, how have you or your loved ones been impacted by Trump and Republicans' policy decisions? How?
Connie, we find that we're afraid. We're afraid every day, especially to see the destruction of democratic ideals and institutions. That frightens us in a big way.
So Connie says, worry and concern, afraid about the democracy and our democratic institutions. Yeah.
Rod, directly affected by a stepson who is a veteran, Bosnian, was injured, and needs vet services in the St. Paul area, and also lost a daughter who is worried about losing her job in the Forest Service or the war. So those are things that are most drastic to our family.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so concerning to have conversations with folks who work at the Minneapolis Veterans Home who day in and day out some have worked there for 20 plus years, and they go there to serve those who serve this country and try to do for them the kind of service that they frankly have earned. And the slash and burn tactics of Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire, to summarily fire people because he doesn't understand their job. This is happening in the VA system in Minnesota and across the country, and it's outrageous.
Quick question, should I just say this term or everything Trump's done and should I just pick one or
Pick one.
list them all?
We'll come back to you.
Okay, that could be your the most recent one is I work at a liquor store. The price of our entire Canadian whiskey section has doubled just in the last couple of weeks. You can probably all guess what.
Yeah.
That's not even the most egregious one, but yeah, like I said, I could go.
It's so important to continue to raise this issue of the tariffs, right? This tariff war exists for one reason only. It is to manipulate the stock market so that billionaires on Wall Street can make a lot of money in one day. And that's what happened yesterday, right? That deal over the weekend, there are investors who knew about that, and now they're hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars richer. And it's unconscionable that entire swaths of our economy are suffering just so that a few guys on Wall Street can make a buck. You talk about tariffs coming from Canada, our number one trading partner, right, is Canada. Devastating. But I think about farmers, and I think about the fact that this tariff situation way back at the beginning of this term, first of all, it depressed the commodity market, and that made farmers a little concerned. If you talk to a farmer in January, they would have said, give the guy a chance. And then the first round of tariffs come, and it depresses the commodity market. And that they start to get worried. And then USAID is completely eliminated, and $70 million is sucked out of the Midwest farming economy. $70 million. Now farmers are getting a little bit more concerned because that's not coming back. That's money that's gone. And then all of a sudden they realize all of the commodities we would have sold to developing countries are back on our markets, further depressing the markets. And then on a Friday afternoon, this is a true story, on a Friday afternoon, they fired 40 plus Farm Service Agency employees. Just fired them. They didn't know what they did. Well, thankfully, the Farmers Union and Farm Bureau said, hey, wait. Those people you fired, they're actually the loan officers that keep the farms cash flowing in Minnesota. And so they scrambled all weekend to try to figure out how to get those people back in the office on Monday. Guess what? Some of those people decided to leave those jobs because nobody, no unelected billionaire named Elon Musk should be able to fire 40 farm service agency employees in Minnesota who are serving farmers. That's ridiculous. Fired up about these tariffs.
I'm just concerned for my dad who's waiting for another back surgery at retirement age and trying to relocate and can't buy the house he's looking to get. And he's not looking to buy much of a house at all because of this 401k thing. It's set back years.
Yeah, so the tariff war not only hurts our Canadian imports, hurts our farmers, but anybody in here who has a 401k has seen that thing go down, right? And they say, oh, don't worry, it'll just come back. Well, guess what? Sometimes they don't come back as fast as a billionaire on Wall Street who can make $1 billion in a day. It's not like that for working families. It's so outrageous how they've completely disregarded the retirement accounts of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of Americans in favor of that. I have to say, one morning I was coming out of a breakfast. One of the things I realized about this job is, like, one of the job duties is to have breakfast and second breakfast and then an early lunch and a late lunch. It's ridiculous. But I was coming out of first breakfast that morning, and I had a friend who texted me, who works in a factory, and said, I can't stand the fact that I'm watching my 401k go down, and he is on the golf course. He was golfing that day when the markets tanked, instead of trying to figure out how to protect our retirement accounts.
Hi, I'm Lori. Yeah, just to revamp your thing, I've got a list of 16 items, and you said we aren't going to be here all day, but the tariffs, the 401ks, when they say, well, you've got time to make it up, well, some of us don't have time. We've worked all our lives for that, and Social Security, scrimped and saved to try to get enough to feel like we're confident enough to retire somewhat comfortably. And now it's scary thinking that you're retired and you may have to go back to work somewhere. Also, the farmers, we farm. I worked at FSA for 37 years and know that that is not the premier job. You work because you love it. Not that it's going to make you money, because you could go in private and get paid more. Things that are affecting me or my family, my parents are both elderly. They worked self-employed all their life, a daycare mom and a truck driver. Didn't save up a lot of money, unfortunately, so Social Security is what they're living off of, and for any point of Social Security being cut would be devastating to them. They wouldn't have a place, wouldn't be able to afford to live in an apartment that they live in right now. Family members, I have some that are on Medicaid, not because they're lazy, not because they aren't willing to work. It's the circumstances of either being elderly or a child. One other thing with this is the SAVE Act. Personally, after being married and the hoops that you would have to go through to be able to vote would be cumbersome. I'm willing and able, but there's a lot of people that aren't able to go through the hoops and pay the money for that. So that's just a couple of my long list of issues.
What's your name again?
Lori.
Lori, thank you. Lori, there's something you brought up that I've been thinking a lot about the last 2 weeks, and this week actually. Congress is starting to move it. Michelle Fischbach has voted not once but twice for a budget reconciliation that would like slash and burn Medicaid, and it would have a devastating impact on Minnesotans. There are children that rely on Medicaid. There are elder adults who rely on Medicaid. Here's the real problem. The level of cuts that Michelle Fischbach is supporting in Congress right now will close rural hospitals, will close nursing homes. We have to use our voices. We have to continue to press back. there's a little sliver of light and hope that I have, and that is that Michelle Fishbach wanted to make these cuts by the end of May, and now because we've been speaking up in our collective voice and saying do not cut Medicaid, they've now pushed that to July or September, right? So we're gaining some ground on the calendar, but this week, through the budget process in the committee structure, they're starting to move those Medicaid cuts and those SNAP cuts, the food cuts. That's devastating for families, and we have to continue to do everything we can to push back against that. Because it is going to devastate not only our rural hospitals and individual family members, but it's going to create such a massive hole in our state budget that it's going to start impacting all other areas of the state budget. You know, education, everything else will be impacted by Michelle Fishbach's plan to cut Medicaid.
That's my biggest fear, and my name is Michelle. My dad is in a nursing home, and he's a Medicaid recipient, $10,000 a month. And he's been in for 3 years, and we don't know what will happen if he loses that coverage. My sister's father-in-law is in North Dakota. He is also a Medicaid recipient. He's an Air Force veteran. My sister got a message from their nursing home for him last Friday. They want to recover $300,000 in payments and say that he is ineligible for any Medicaid services until 2026. He is a victim of Parkinson's and dementia. He is delusional. He is suicidal. We don't know what we would do with our fathers if any of this happens.
Absolutely. It is, it's unconscionable to me. You know, if anybody knows, I've come from Stearns County, so I know Michelle Fishbach pretty well. And if anybody knows her history in politics, she's run as a pro-life candidate every single time she's been on the ballot. And this vote on Medicaid, cutting Medicaid, is the most anti-life vote that she's ever going to take. And we have to remind people of that. We should be angered and outraged.
My name is Vince, I'm a family doctor. I think, well, I know that about 25% of our workforce in America, in Minnesota, is graduate doctors from foreign countries. The current administration is very much opposed to having foreign students in medical school and residency level enter America. They stop that, well, they're stopping it now. We're immediately going to lose 25% of our workforce. And we don't have enough workforce right now. Shopping 25% of best doctors, and we steal the best brains from overseas, which is sort of unfair, but it helps us a great deal. That's going to go away very quickly.
Thanks for raising that. Yeah, so the anti-immigration policy is impacting medical students who are, you know, the backbone of our medical care system. But if we don't have them, then we're not going to be able to provide the care. You can imagine what happens to healthcare costs when doctors become even more scarce. Yeah, back here.
Yeah, my name is because we have funding like rural ambulance services, law enforcement, that's going to cause extra stress on all of us. Somebody who worked for the census office, they got fired. For 6 years, and tried to keep on it. This guy there had
Got it, yeah. So, you know, there's already a stress, we all know this, right, on the road ambulance and EMT network and hospitals, and this is just going to further exacerbate that. Yeah, Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben Walker. I live here in Marshall. I was wondering what your thoughts are on how best to continue to support public education. I have 4 kids in the K-12 system right now. I teach here at SMSU, and I'm greatly concerned about the Republican efforts to decrease funding for public education, particularly try to pull funding, public money into private education. That's disturbing to me. Can you share your thoughts on how we go about actually keeping public money in public institutions?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real problem right now in the legislature, where, money's tight, and the governor and DFL leaders in the House and Senate are trying to do their best to end the session on time on Monday. And you have Republican legislators who, their solution is to cut public education, right? We invest in public education over the last decade, and what happens? This year, we report the highest graduation rates in the history of our state. That's what investing in public education looks like. And unfortunately, we have not only legislators in St. Paul who are Republicans trying to cut public education, but on top of that, we have the president and his administration gutting the Department of Education. They actually want to eliminate it and start to outsource parts of it to different agencies, and then they say that they'll continue to send the money, but they've turned off all of the grant funding, all the research grants. The University of Minnesota right now, the cuts to the NIH grants alone would blow a hole in the budget of about $400 million. The legislature can't backfill that, right? And those NIH grants at the U of M, those are going for like children's cancer research. How do we reduce the cost of prescription drugs, not just for Minnesotans, but across the country? Those are the kind of studies that are being impacted by these cuts out of Washington, and we have to continue to speak up. I think we need to make sure that we show up and we share our voice. And I think that is helping. That is actually working. When I talk about the budget bill being the big, beautiful bill the president talks about, that's being pushed from his own imposed Memorial Day deadline. Now it's out to July or September. We have to keep pushing, because the longer we delay this, the more sunshine we can get on the votes Michelle Fischbach is taking. We can't let her get away with these votes. She won't come here and talk to you. She won't face her constituents. She's hiding from people in the 7th Congressional District because I think she's ashamed at what she's being asked to do. She's being asked to carry water, and she's afraid. She's afraid to stand up for her constituents. Instead, she's caving to this president, and she's caving to the far-right extremes of her party.
Kathy, which leads me to ask a question. Where is Congress? With everything being ordered, executive ordered, which I feel is incredibly unlawful, because really, truthfully, folks, they don't care about straws. Don't care about a few of those other fiddly things, but no one's standing up to him. I mean, there's 3 branches of the government. I've been taught well. It's executive, it's representatives, and then it's your judges. Well, he owns Congress. He's soon to own the judges.
Yeah, it's a really concerning moment where Article 1 of the Constitution is the legislative branch, and absolutely they are not showing up. They're not holding him accountable. They're not doing their oversight job. In fact, just this week he fired the librarian in Congress, who actually works and reports to Congress, right? And so there's some serious concerns, serious problems about the fact that Michelle Fischbach goes to Washington to represent you on the taxpayer's dime, and there's completely doesn't do anything to represent her constituents. Refuses to even speak a little tiny bit of truth. She promotes, she enables this president, and she ultimately is complicit in these cuts when it comes to Medicaid and SNAP. And I'm going to be relentless about this. We have to hold her accountable. So actually, we're going to have an activity tonight. On this listening tour, we usually ask 3 questions and get a lot of feedback, and then give you calls to action at the end. But our team came up with an idea, and that is, you have a missing congresswoman. This is a postcard, and if you have a pen or a neighbor of yours has a pen, we want you to fill out this postcard. We want you to write to Congresswoman Fischbach, and we'll make sure, we'll collect them at the end, and we'll get them out to her office. We want you to write a note to her, asking her to either vote no on the cuts to Medicaid, or vote no on the cuts to SNAP, or both. Those are the 2 most critical items that is going to be coming before Congress in the coming couple of weeks. And we need to make sure that she hears from her constituents. Since she won't actually show up herself, we want to empower you to send her a message. And we're handing around pens right now too, I see. Christine. Thank you for that. It's an interesting postcard. It says missing Congresswoman. We actually had lawn signs like these too for a while. Last seen, trying to gut Medicaid and cut taxes for billionaires. Think about that. That's the choice, right? It's a black and white choice. She has a choice. Protect Medicaid or tax cuts for billionaires. That's the choice she's making. And she has decided so far twice in the budget process, 2 votes, she has decided twice to choose billionaires and deliver Medicaid cuts to benefit them. That's really reprehensible. And we have to do everything we can to highlight that and hold her accountable. Last thing I want to point out is we need to have a town hall with Representative Fishbach. We need her to show up in the community and hear from her community. And so we put at the bottom of this postcard a phone number, 202-225-2165. Do you know what number that is? That's her office number in DC. Who already has this number in their phone? I knew it. There's always a few people who already have that number saved in their phone. I love that. You should continue to contact a member of Congress every chance you get. All right, how else are these cuts impacting you and your family? We'll take a couple more and then we'll go to the next question.
Hi, I'm Donna. I'm going to jump on the education. I am a school teacher here in the Marshall School District, and I think my biggest concern with the gutting and dismantling of the Department of Education is the oversight for my students who are on IEPs and 504 plans. Just concerned that they're not going to get the support that they need.
So these students who work really, really hard and they come up with these individual learning plans that are really key to their success, not only gaining the knowledge they need, but being successful in the school community itself, are going to be impacted by these cuts, because these cuts actually go at those programs that support these school districts who can provide that level of service for these students. Again, another level of cuts to people that you see every day that I'm sure you get to know their families, because their families are usually involved in crafting these plans. And so you get to see that devastating impact. And it's going to impact how they interact with their student body, with their fellow classmates. It's really unconscionable. Let's go up here.
Kim, I worked for the Department of Health for Minnesota for years. We got a lot of money from the CDC through grants. In fact, I always called it the CDC of the North because we have so much money. But with the cuts coming, with the secretary saying vaccine is bad for you, and they're not funding that anymore, we're not going to see an immediate result. But when we have some outbreaks, look out. We're going to have deaths. We're going to have people dying because they weren't vaccinated. And then the parents are going to say, well, we were told it wasn't any good. Why should we worry? Well, when their child dies from a disease that they could have prevented, I don't know what to tell them. I'm glad I don't have to work there anymore and have to tell that to people. But that's what scares me, is the fact that we've got a time bomb that'll be ticking down the road years to come when this blows up.
Absolutely. Yeah, the direct assault on science and health science is something that I've been tracking. I've learned a lot more recently about the phrase herd immunity and the level of concern people have for as vaccine rates drop in this country. It's more likely that this country will be the source of the next massive outbreak. And that's where you're talking, Kim, about actually kids and people dying, because we have leaders who say forget about vaccines, who question the efficacy of vaccines. It's a dangerous situation, and we have to continue to stand up for public health. I'm so proud of our governor. I'm so proud of Keith Ellison, who, as soon as these cuts come and they're not based on law, Congress passed this funding. Congress passed this funding. The funding was allocated and promised. And then on March 24th, the state government was told that the grants were canceled on March 23rd. We're told the day after the grants were canceled, they were canceled. That's what happened at the Minnesota Department of Health. And thankfully, we have an attorney general who's willing to go to bat for the workers at the Minnesota Department of Health so they can continue doing their job, which is a lot of it is research. A lot of it is making sure that there's public health awareness. A lot of it is just making sure community has the information they need to make the best decisions for them and their families. And unfortunately, we have such an anti-science, anti-health science administration right now that they put this guy in charge of the Department of Health that is a really scary dude, and he's trying to seed doubt and play on the worst fears of parents rather than giving out information that is actually scientifically based. It's really frustrating, and I hear you, Ken.
Got one right here.
Hi, my name is Shauna. There's so many things, but one is my mom has advanced dementia, multiple physical issues, is in a wheelchair. She is in a nursing home, is on medical assistance, so probably, as my dad says, almost half the house. He refuses to leave, he's a veteran, and our daughter is there helping him out because he can hardly walk. He lives on Social Security, and we don't know if that's gonna be around. Medicare, of course, cuts with the cost of medications, it's unaffordable for many people. Our daughter, who is helping take care of my dad, works in a group home with developmentally delayed adults. She said, all these guys are not going to have a place to live. Medicare is, MA is cut. I mean, it's atrocious. Her son's on a 504 plan, and they're looking for $1 million. I mean, I work in mental health and work with students, and a lot are not really aware of what's going on. But those who are terrified, especially LGBT students, students coming from other countries, international students, it's hard to relate to those fears because they're very nervous.
Yeah. This president promised working families that he'd stand up for them, that he sees them, and what I'm seeing from this president is somebody who actually looks through them. It's one thing to look beyond somebody and miss them. It's another thing to look at their family, understand that this working family does everything they can to support one another, and they're trying to figure out how to make it work. Her daughter's home with your dad, her grandpa, and still works at a group home in order to try and make things work and take care of grandpa at the same time. This is such a common experience. You know, I grew up in Chisago County, north of St. Paul, on a family farm in the family since 1897, and my family went through the same thing. In fact, my cousin thankfully lives on the family farm next to my dad, so he can check in on my dad, and his dad still lives on the family farm in the other house, right? And this is how that community takes care of each other. And when they needed a babysitter, my stepmom was the babysitter for my cousin's kids, right? And this is how families pull together in tough times. And when you think about what Medicaid cuts will do to this family, the anxiety and uncertainty that causes, it's like Michelle Fischbach doesn't just look past you, she's looking through you. She doesn't care about you anymore. She's choosing to care about tax cuts, permanent tax cuts for billionaires, rather than understanding the very real impact this has to how working families piece it together. It's just about piecing it together to support one another. And that's the devastating impact. I see it in my own family, and I can totally relate to your experience. All right, what should the DFL party do? What should the DFL party do? What do you want us to do over the next 18 months? We have 18 months until November 2026. So what do we need to do in order to make sure that we're being present and we're working and we're collaborating with folks here in Marshall? What do you want us to be working on? Say your name again, please.
Brent. And this is just a question. I wrote something down before we got here. So bear with me. I know this is not a fashion in this day and age, but I'm actually going to start with some data. There's a recent poll, I think like a month ago. 33% of Americans approve of Trump using military force to annex Crimea. Yes, think about what that means. Trump invaded an ally of ours, unprovoked. 1/3 of the country would say, okay, sure. So what that really means is that there's 1/3 of the country that is completely unreachable. They're in a cult. No matter what you do, you're not gonna. Doesn't matter what what messages we have, what policies we have, unless you are literally Donald Trump, they will not get it. So don't even think about trying to appeal to them. It's a waste of time. So, but another more hopeful data point here. In 2016, when arguably the primaries were bigger news than the election, most independents supported either Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders. And most people that had one as their top pick had the other as a close second. So what do Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have in common? Spoiler alert, not a whole lot. But one thing they do have is that they pick some sort of message and they fight for it. Doesn't matter what the polling is. Doesn't matter what Fox News or MSNBC or CNN or whoever says about it. They fight for that position. For too long, we haven't had leaders in Washington. We've had followers. Politicians who don't actually believe in anything. Just follow what they think Americans want. We've had too many Chuck Schumers who wait a week to send Trump a strongly worded letter about pardoning January 6ers when 50 other things have already happened. And let's be honest, we're not even sure if Trump knows how to do it. We have too many Nancy Pelosi's who claim to have Medicare for all signs gathering dust in their basements because they gave up the fight. All we really need for Democrats to actually lead. Put your ideas first, fight for them no matter what, and voters will follow. The poll shows your idea is not popular, advocate for it. Actually give people the information. Maybe that will shift. But too many vapid mouthpieces in Washington. You don't actually need to. America's not evil. You don't need to get closer to Republicans. You don't need to compromise with evil. Unfortunately, the people that realize that we don't need to just go with the political winds or whatever, the first people that realized that were lunatics. But they were rewarded for actually believing in something, even if that thing they believed in was that immigrants are eating cats and dogs. So, this is what I think Democrats should do. Ignore the polls, fire the consultants, kick out the lobbyists, disband the focus group, the think tanks, find something you genuinely believe in, and fight for it, no matter how much Fox News calls you a communist.
Thank you, Brent. One of the things Brent said, I think about quite a bit, and that is, who do we need to communicate with? Who do we need to have a genuinely engaged, deeply relational conversation with? And those are the disaffected Democrats, the independents, and the non-voters in this country. There are a lot of non-voters. And so one of the things we talk about a lot at the DFL is how do we make sure that as a party, we are going to invest in those authentic relationships. Instead of telling voters what to think, let's actually listen to voters. We've become known as a party that lectures at people, rather than giving people the space to tell us about what their experience in their lives is. That's why we came here tonight. You all shared powerful stories about what you're going through, and about the decisions, the chaos and confusion coming out of Washington, and how that impacts your lives. Some of you talked about anxiety and being scared. Some of you clearly are upset and frustrated. And as Democrats in 2025 and 2026, we need to make sure that disaffected Democrats, independents, and non-voters feel heard. They feel seen. They feel valued, that their perspective matters. And so that's one of the things we're committed to at the DFL party. In 2012, I ran the Minnesota United for All Families, the Vote No campaign. And we understood voters not to be persuadable. Persuadable is a voter who you go up to and you give 8 to to 12 messages to, and then somewhere between 8 and 12, they go, aha, yeah, I'm gonna vote for your candidate. That's not how voters respond today. That's not how voters react. Voters are either sitting it out because they don't believe in what your issues actually are, that you believe in the issues you talk about, or worse, they voted for the other team. And in 2025 and 2026, we have to be the party that creates space so people talk to us about their conflict. I think voters are conflicted. I don't think anybody who voted for the other team or sat this thing out feels any less anxious than you or I. I think the truth is, there are a lot of anxious people and they want to talk about the anxiety and conflict they feel. And the better that we show up in community and we organize and we create spaces so that they can tell us how they're feeling, the better we're going to do at the polls come election day. And so that's one of the things our party is absolutely committed to, is making sure that working class families all across Minnesota feel seen, heard, and it's through hearing them that we can build an authentic relationship where trust can start to be fostered, and ultimately that trust can earn their vote over time. That's the approach I think we need to take, especially with these middle voters.
I enjoyed the daily war room.
I'm going to talk about that in a second. What's your name?
Al Cruz.
Al Cruz. Good to see you, Al.
I think we need an 87 county plan.
Yes.
We need to get the governor out, talk to the people and explain to us why what the legislature did when we had the trifecta, why that was good for Minnesota.
Yes.
Because out here, all we hear is government overreach. You're spending our money, you're wasting our money. And I was told in St. Paul, well, your legislature is supposed to do that. Well, in case you haven't noticed, we have a dearth of Democratic legislators out here to explain that. So all we hear from people is that. So we need the leadership to get out here in all 87 counties and make some music and explain why what they did was good. Because we're hearing we gotta stop being people.
Thank you, Al. Yeah. Organize everywhere. That's why we're hiring organizers. As I said, we're bringing on 8 new organizers by the end of this month, beginning of June. And Al, something that you said is really important, and that is we have to show up and prove that we are the party of the working family. Because what happened in 2023 stabilized the working family budget. So when we talk about the chaos and confusion coming out of Washington every day, there's a little bit of a safe haven here in Minnesota, because in 2023, our governor and our legislators invested in working families. How did they do that? I want you all to go to DFL accomplishments. It's dfl.org/delivers. And here I've put these programs that we passed in 2023. I'm going to start with this. One of the single biggest investments we made. Do you all know what it was in 2023? $3.5 billion in the bank for a rainy day fund. You'll hear Republicans say they spent $18 billion. No. $3.5 billion is sitting in the bank today to stave off a rainy day. And I don't know, maybe this Trump cut and Fishbach cut to Medicaid will be part of that rainy day. But I got to tell you, I'm thankful that the first thing we did is put $3.5 billion away. The second thing is we invested in the child tax credit. The biggest child tax credit in this country. It reduced poverty by 1/3. $2,400 per kid. Anyone you know who's filing taxes, $2,400 per kid, unlimited number of kids. There are some families with 1 kid, there are some families with 5 kids. $2,400 per kid. That's the child tax credit. Universal school meals. Simple idea. Kids learn better when they have a full tummy. And so this is a tax cut for families. Up to $1,400 a year it saves families. And now we're hearing, we should take away universal school meals as their solution to future budget concerns. No, we're not taking the food out of the mouths of kids. Like, that is what Michelle Fishbach wants to do by cutting SNAP benefits. That's what Republicans want to do by cutting universal school meals. Take food out of the mouths of kids. We will not do that. We'll stand up to that. We invested in housing, not just, in the Twin Cities. We invested up to $3 billion we leveraged in housing investments throughout this state. And if you're in Marshall, if you're in Wilmer, I went to Wilmer, 750 people, they talk about housing in Wilmer. You go to Winona, they talk about housing in Winona. You go to Mankato, they talk about housing and how much it costs to buy a house, how much it costs to get into a mortgage, how much it costs to rent is a real issue. And so Democrats in 2023 invested in housing, workforce development, infrastructure. Time and again, these are working class, working family investments. And we should be damn proud of those, and I can't agree with you more. Like, we will get around this state, we're gonna define what we as a party stand for. It's simple, Republicans equal chaos, Democrats equal stabilizing working families, in all those aspects. We need to stabilize the economies for working class people. We need to do that. Okay, one more thing, what should we do?
Let other people talk. I thought you were here to listen.
Thank you.
Hi. So I had three things I really wanted to address. One, I wanted to thank the party for helping out with helping Indigenous folks get to go to college. That's something huge. I have a foster kid who's graduating high school, and they're able to go to college now when that wasn't in the future before. So that's a huge win, and that's something that I think gets dropped off all of these conversations. So I'm really appreciative of that. You asked, what can the DFL do? It's been said here, and I think Hal's right, we need more help out here to come having people come out and speak to these things. So we need to feel that support out here and to hear that message, not in letters to the editor, not in mailers, but in actual people like this, events who are coming out and talking, and we need more of that. So, and we need these events to be calling people in, so highlighting the stuff that we're doing and that we see that are good, but also want to make sure that we're also calling people out and saying, for those people who are spreading straight lies, it's okay if we have disagreements. I'm a teacher, so I'm used to having disagreements with my students all the time. I said that's totally fine in the classroom. It's totally fine in the community. We have disagreements, and that's fine. But when people read them, just believe and spread outright lies, and just it's not true. Period. We have promises from a certain party that says they will not cut Medicaid or Medicare, and then literally they're on the record, and then immediately go and do that right away at the start of the next session. And they say, we never said that. But you're on the record. It's not an opinion. You're lying. So we need to call them on stuff like that, but make sure that we're including them and saying we can turn this around together. So I think more people out here, more calling in, but also not rolling over and ignoring the lies. We need to call it the lies.
Yeah, we definitely need to hold them accountable.
Kind of feeding into that same thing, we should also share the facts of the consequences of today's policies. So just like we share the successes of 2023, we have a researcher. Can we measure how much money has been lost to Lyon County since January? Can we measure how much money farmers don't get this year since January? Can we measure that and share that within the community and give these actual data points to these very rabid citizens and show them the facts?
Love that idea. Show them the numbers.
I understand the concept of work together. I agree 100%. But they have to, I would say Democrats, they have to do something that draws the independents and non-voters
agenda says more disruptive things. How many people have gone to a rally? Wow. Protests, rallies, things like that. How many people have never come to a DFL meeting before? Yeah. Right. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Other things you want to see the party work on?
Okay, I have no idea how this would work in practical terms, but I do really think a lot like with Al that we need a little bit more education and explanation. And for example, so the City of Marshall just held a Marshall Citizen Academy. For 7 weeks, we went to various places around town, learned about the water treatment plant, the fire department, the police academy, and all this stuff. And it helped a lot because sometimes I get frustrated with some conversations because I don't know enough about what is actually happening. I don't know enough about the day-to-day stuff. So when we talk about these big, lofty things, it's hard to concrete it and be like, this is what is actually happening because we just get, and it's kind of like a scare tactic. It is scary, don't get me wrong, but if we, I guess I don't know what it would look like in implementation, but if we just talk a little bit more about what actually happens, so that when we talk about these changes, it has more impact. Because otherwise, we're like, well, what does that actually mean?
It's a great question. It's a great tee up for what I'm going to invite you to. So I'm married to a school teacher, and one thing that I know is that when folks gather like this, you don't come to just wallow in the defeat of 2024. You want to understand what is the assignment. What is the assignment I'm going to leave here with? So the first thing I want to say is we've established that with that community that you're just talking about. We have something at the DFL now called the daily call to action. And I want you to look at your QR code sheets. You can either click on it or you have the website, dfl.org/dailycta. So this is a call that happens every single day at 10:45. It's a 7 to 12 minute call. This week we had a special guest, Kelly Morrison. Congresswoman Kelly Morrison was a special guest on Monday. Last week we had Senator Aaron Murphy, the Senate leader for the DFL, the majority leader. But throughout the week, every single day at 10:45, we convene a 7 to 12 minute call where we talk about the issue, the message of the day, the actions and the tools people need to be empowered. How many people have been on this daily call? So a few people. I invite you to join. You can go sign up. Again, we do it every day at 10:45. We start at 10:45. We're done usually by 10:52 or 10:55. And we'll have some special guests coming up later this week. But that's where we as a community try to help everyone sort through all the barrage of headlines. Should we talk about Alcatraz, Donald Trump as Pope, the jet from Qatar? What should we talk about today? Today, we talked about the fact that Republicans have a new candidate for governor. His name's Kenneth Walz. He is a right-wing extremist culture warrior who wants to take away family planning and defund public education. It's some of the most extreme viewpoints I can imagine, completely out of line with Minnesota. But we need you to all know that that's who they are putting up as their candidate for governor. And so today we made sure that folks understood that. And then we gave you a call to action. We gave you the social media post to use if you so wish. And we give you other information to help sort through what that actually means. So I invite you to that daily call to action. Second, we have the Summer of Action. We're launching it next week. And the Summer of Action is an opportunity for us to talk about gathering in groups. How do you host a house party? How do you host an event? Anybody running for office? Anybody think about running for office? Not here? We're going to have a training next week where we already have dozens of people signed up on how to run for office. So we're actually going to start giving that information out there and other really cool opportunities with the Summer of Action. And then lastly, we have our listening tour. You can click on this, and this is a listening tour survey. If we didn't hear you tonight, we'd love for you to fill out this survey so that we can make sure that your voice is reflected in our plan. We are, as a state party, putting together a path to victory for 2026. That path to victory is going to focus on 4 things. First and foremost, listen, learn, lead. We have to listen to voters, we have to learn from voters, and only after we listen and learn can we lead with voters to a giant victory in 2026. Number 2, we have to organize. We have to organize locally, and we have to build from the ground up. We're going to work with local organizing units, county units, to understand what you need, and we're going to try to do everything we can to deliver on building this party from the ground up. Number 3, Democrats have to stand for something, and we are going to make sure that we're defining what it means to show up for working families in this state, and we'll do that relentlessly. And number 4, we need to hold Republicans accountable. The chaos, confusion, hurt and pain, anxiety that we heard tonight, we need to make sure voters understand who's responsible. Because when we make sure people understand who's responsible, which is Michelle Fischbach and local legislators who are Republicans, voters will hold them accountable in November 2026. This will lead to our opportunity to make one of the biggest electoral defeats of any sitting president. And time and again, that's what we hear. We need to defeat Donald Trump at the ballot box in November of 2026. He's not on the ballot, but plenty of his enablers and complicit members are, and we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to do so relentlessly. So last question, I just love to hear. What gives you hope? Time. We're pushing the bill back. The big beautiful bill's getting delayed.
I'm Deb, and what gives me hope is all the people who have shown up at protests and rallies, especially young people. I think we need to listen to the young people and their concerns.
Any protests or rallies people want to mention that you want to invite others to, that you're aware of?
Every second, Tuesday from 5 to 6 at Park. Thank you. That was our march. Big march to support the park. Last time it was 4. Yes, it was 1
Second and fourth Tuesday, 4 to 6, 5 to 6? 5 to 6 at Memorial Park. What gives you hope?
Not a whole lot, but the fact that Michelle Fischbach's office in Wilbur just happens to be a few of the only Tesla charging stations in Wilbur. So if you want a 2-for-1, hey, send a Wilbur.
Independent media.
Independent media. Others? All right. Thank you so much. Myself, Marge, and our team from the DFL will stick around. We'd love to hear more from you. There's cookies, lemonade, and water, snacks. Help yourself. Thank you for being here tonight.
Postcards.
Oh, yeah. Please turn in your postcards. We'd love to collect those on your way out. Thank you.
Cookies.